When working in After Effects, you will often want to bring in media from other applications. After Effects supports a wide range of file types that you can import into the application. Here is just a short list of some of the more popular file types. But for a more exhaustive list, I recommend that you check out this link. You have a wide range of how you can import files into After Effects. Here are a few tips that you'll want to think about. After Effects works internally in an RGB color space. It can bring in CMYK images, but if possible, you should prepare your artwork in the RGB color space. Before you import any sort of images into After Effects, try to prepare it as completely as possible to reduce rendering time. It's usually easier and faster to prepare still images in the native application before importing them into After Effects. If you want a specific area to be transparent, you can create an alpha channel or use transparency tools in applications like Photoshop and Illustrator. You'll also want to set the pixel dimension to the resolution and frame aspect ratio that you will ultimately use in After Effects. If you plan on scaling the image over time, set the image dimensions to provide enough detail at the largest size that the image has in the project. So for instance, if you were working in a 1920 by 1080 After Effects project and you wanted to use an image that was scaled up very large and then scale it down, you would want to make sure that the image is prepared at the largest size at which you would want to use it at before bringing it in, so you don't lose any sort of resolution. If you're going to be bringing in a layered file, which After Effects does support, you'll want to think about how you want to animate the various parts of that particular file and organize them with layers. Let's go ahead and take a look at how we can import within After Effects. Once you've launched After Effects, you have several ways in which you can import files. You can go to File, Import, and then you can choose to import either a file or multiple files. And in all honesty, it doesn't really matter which one you choose, because if you select File, you can still choose multiple files. You can also simply double-click in the project window, which is going to allow you to navigate around your computer and select files in which you would want to import. In addition, if you have not yet created any sort of composition in After Effects, you can create a new composition from footage. If we go ahead and click New Composite from Footage, we can browse and select the footage that we want to bring in. Let's go ahead and just look at this umbrella.ai file. This is a file that contains many layers. I'm going to go ahead and choose to bring this in initially as footage, and I'll have After Effects create a composition. I'm going to click Open. For whatever reason, After Effects wants to make sure that I'm making the right decision, so I'm going to choose to import this as footage, and then we have the option to bring in all layers merged together, or we can choose a specific layer from our file. I'm just simply going to click Merged Layers. I'll click OK, and as you can see, After Effects has made me a composition, and here is my native Illustrator file. It is worth mentioning that Illustrator files will come in as vector artwork. If we look at this artwork, all of the elements of this file are glued down together, so this is just going to act as though it is one image. We are not able to pull apart the various pieces. Let's go ahead and click Undo, and let's try this again. This time I'm going to choose the exact same file, but I'm going to bring this in as a composition. If we choose Basic Composition and we click Open, After Effects is going to bring in the artwork, and you can see that in the Umbrella Layers folder, I have individual layers that are the different pieces of my file. I also have a composition. If we open this, you will now see that I have a new composition, and all of these elements are on their own separate layer. Notice when I select any of the elements, the bounding box matches the size of the composition. I'm going to do undo one more time, and once again, we're going to import the same file, but this time I'm going to choose Composition Retain Layer Sizes. This is my preferred method of bringing in layered files into After Effects. I'll click Open, and we get the same results, but if we open our composition, you will see when I click on any of the elements, the bounding box matches the size of that particular element. This allows me to be very flexible, and I'm able to manipulate the artwork on a layer-by-layer basis. And of course, I can create animation and use this file and all of the individual layers to create an animated version. Let's go ahead and let's bring in some other file types. I will double-click in my project window. This time, I'm going to choose a still image. I have two images that are named Shark 1 and Shark 2. If we choose Shark 1 and we choose to import as a sequence, After Effects is going to bring these in sequentially. So I'll choose these options, we'll click OK, and as you can see, After Effects created a shark composition. If we scrub through the composition, you will see that at a certain point in time, the layer is going to switch to my second image. If we double click on this JPEG file, there is a marker in the middle of the file which indicates where the file switches over to the next image. I'm going to go ahead and click Undo. Now we'll go ahead and we'll bring in multiple files. So I'm going to select on all of my still images. When you're selecting the files to bring into After Effects, you can click on the first file, and then if you hold down your Shift key, you can select multiple files. If you want to select out of sequential order, hold down your Command or Control key, and in this way you can select items that are not sequentially organized within your folder. I'm going to go ahead and just import these, and this time I'm not going to create a composition. I'll click Open, and the files are placed inside of my project window. At this point, I could drag these into an existing composition and use them accordingly. What I like to do when I'm dealing with different file types is I like to make folders so that I can stay organized. So I'm going to go ahead and call this folder Stills. Then I'll drop all of my still images into that particular folder. While I'm at it, I'm going to make a composition folder. I like to name my composition folder with an underscore so that it sits on top of everything else in my project window. I will go ahead and drop my compositions into this folder. Let's double click again to import some other file types. This time I'm going to bring in a movie file. I did want to point out that this particular file has dimensions that are fairly large. If we go ahead and bring this file in as footage and choose Create Composition once again and click Open, you will see that After Effects has placed the movie file inside of an existing composition. If we go up to Composition, Composition Settings, you will see that the composition setting sizes are based on the file that we imported. Just be aware that when you do create a composition from imported file, the size of the composition is going to be based on the file type, and that will be true whether it's a still or a video image type. I'm going to double click one more time, and this time I'm going to choose a PSD file. This is a layered Photoshop file. So I'm going to bring this in, and instead of as footage, I'm going to select Composition, Retain Layer Sizes. I'll go ahead and have it create a composition, and we'll click Open. You can see that I'm getting a warning which is asking me if I want to keep my layer styles as being editable. You can either choose this or you can merge the layer styles into footage. I'm going to keep mine as being editable. I'll click OK, and After Effects has now imported a new folder called Space Composite Layers, and you can see I have a number of layers, and in addition, it's created a new composite for me. If we double click on this first composite, you will see that we have a couple of layers, and they are all named according to the layers in my Photoshop document. If we open up Space Composite 1, you will see that we have different layers that are part of this composition, and the composition itself looks different. That is because in my Photoshop document, I have 5 layers. I have the space layer, I have the moon layer, and then I have a sea and land layer. As you can see, I am using a layer mask on this layer to eliminate the original sky. Then, because I want the land to look a little bit more like nighttime, I have created 2 solids, and I'm using blending modes to add more of a purple and darkish hue to the overall composite. If we switch back to After Effects, you will see that here's my sea and land layer. In addition to this particular layer, I have 2 additional layers, Color 1, which is using a blending mode, and Color 2, which is also using a blending mode. If you don't see the blending modes, you will need to click this little button down here, Toggle Switches and Modes. By default, After Effects probably displays with the switches, but if you want to see the modes, you'll just click this button. If we go back to Space Composite, you can see that the sea and land has already been composited. It is actually a nested composition. So this particular layer is made up of the 3 layers that we saw in Space Composite 1. If you have effects in Photoshop, this is how they will normally come in, as long as you choose to retain the layer styles. I'll just go ahead and drop my compositions into my composition folder. I'm going to make a new folder called Video, and I'll place my video file in there, just so I can keep everything tidy and neat. After Effects has a number of ways that you can import files. Taking time to stay organized when working with layered files and other applications that you ultimately want to use inside of After Effects is extremely beneficial. In addition, you have a lot of other options in how you can incorporate other sorts of assets into your After Effects projects. Now you know how you can import a number of different file types and the various settings that you'll be prompted to make decisions about when bringing other sorts of media into After Effects.